Well, hello there and good evening to you. It's so good to see you, and I'm so happy to be here with you. I'm Mel Capers from Capers Business Ventures, or CBV Services is what we call ourselves. And I'm here today to talk to you about 3 tips on becoming a better speaker before an audience. I'm so happy to be here with you. I just want to make sure that I get this message across to you very clearly. And why am I doing this? I'm doing this because I want you to become a better speaker. I want you to learn 3 foundational points that you can use to build yourself up as a speaker. Now, I'm not talking about becoming a professional speaker. I'm not talking about going out and being a keynote. I'm just talking about learning 3 things that can help you become a better presenter, and whatever it may be. You might have a presentation that you're doing before, I don't know, reading church notes, or talking to a group at your job, talking to family members, getting ready for, I don't know, a family reunion. Uh, it's just a matter of speaking before an audience, be it 5, 50, or 500 people. If you use these speaking tips that I'm going to give you, you will learn how to prepare yourself and be a better speaker and a presenter of information before an audience of 5, 50, or 500. So that's what I want you to get out of this. I want you to be able to walk away from this next 45 minutes having a clear understanding of the 3 tips that you can use to be building blocks to improve your presentation skills. What this will not be is a session so that you can learn how to be a flamboyant speaker, or a person who's a professional speaker, as I said. That's for a different seminar, a different audience probably. I just want you to learn a little bit of, I don't know, 3 tips, like I said, 3 tips that will help you become a better speaker. Like I said, be it before an audience of 5, 50, 500, 5,000. These 3 foundational things will help you. So that's my objective in the next 45 minutes. And I'm going to say 45 minutes. I usually do the webinar in 1 hour, but I don't want to take all of your time. And I want to make sure that you get what you need out of this presentation. And so here's where we're going. What we were going to do is a quick survey. I was going to do a survey on Mentimeter. It's an online survey that I usually do. But again, I want to make this a 45-minute presentation to you. I don't want to take too much of your time. And sometimes the presentation, when we do the survey with it, tends to take a turn, and we spend a lot of time on the surveys because it's interactive. And so we're going to not do the surveys in this particular webinar. We'll do it on a future webinar. But what I do want to get to is the 3 tips. The 3 tips that I want to talk to you today about, and I'll go a little bit more detail with each one of them. The first tip is stating the objective in the opening. That's what I just did. I told you exactly what I want you to get out of this presentation. I also told you, and I'm telling you now, where we're going to go. I'll give you a quick example of what I'm talking about. Just imagine you having a spouse who came home and said that, it's time to go on the road and time to take a trip. And you agree to taking the trip because, the pandemic has kept most of us in our homes and our neighborhoods for over a year, almost 18 months. And it's time to get out and enjoy this beautiful world we live in. So you're excited to go on this trip. So, your spouse tells you how long you'll be gone for, and so you pack a bag for the amount of days that you're going to be gone for, get in the car, you and your spouse on the road, and you're driving. The one thing your spouse has not done yet has not told you where you're going. Hasn't said where you're going. So you're just in the vehicle, riding with your spouse, happy to be getting away, and not having any idea where you're going. At first, you might be excited. because you know you're going somewhere. You just don't know where you're going. And you can care less. But after a while, you'll start asking the question, where are we going? Because you want to know. That's what you do during speaking presentation. The audience wants to know where you're going. What are you trying to do? Why should they listen to you? That's what you do in the objective. You make sure that you have an objective early in your presentation, and also make sure you allow your audience an opportunity to understand what they should be getting out of the presentation and where you're going. It's important to know where you're going because you want to establish some milestones throughout your presentation, not for yourself. You know exactly where you're going. And you've been in situations where you know what you're talking about, but the person you're speaking to doesn't have an idea where you're going. So the first tip is to help them understand where you're going. You talk about the objective. We're not going to do the survey, as I said. So we're going to skip over the survey, and it would be Mentimeter. But we'll do that another time. So the first tip is to state the objective early in your presentation. When you state your objective early in your presentation, you want to tell your audience why they should be listening to you. Why are you speaking before them? Let them know up front so that they have an idea and appreciation. Oh, I know how to listen to you now because you're going to be giving me something that's important to me. So that is important, to give the objective up front. Let your audience know what information that they are going to get while listening to you. That is a part of tip number 1. State your objective in the opening. You also want to let your audience know what they should do with the information that you're presenting them. Think about that. I'm giving you this information. Okay, now what? The next step is to tell them, take this information, build your foundation to becoming a better speaker by using these tips. You can phrase it however you want to, but make sure you talk about your objective. You tell your audience what you want them to do with the information that you're going to provide, and you let them know for sure how you're going to get through the presentation by giving them some mile markers, so milestones, giving them some points to listen to so that they know where they are in the presentation. See, tell them what you want to use, how do you want to use the information, and provide them a roadmap. Now, a lot of people will say the roadmap is pretty much the overview, and it is. It's an overview of the topics that you're going to be discussing. So do this up front. This is tip number 1. Do your objective in your opening. In your objective, make sure you tell your audience what you want them to get out of the information and how to use the information that you're providing. Everything you do in your presentation is to reach that objective. Then you give them a roadmap of the different topics that you're going to be talking about so they know when to stop taking notes on this page, turn to the next page, which is the next main point, and start taking notes on that. Or if there are some main points that you're going to talk about, and there is one or two that really is of interest to them, then they're really going to perk up and listen. But you have to let them know up front what those main points are. So that's tip number 1. You state the objective in the opening. Not only stating the objective, but you also want to give them a roadmap so they know exactly what they should be listening for and when you get to the next point. Tip number 1, real easy. State the objective in the opening and give a roadmap. That is it. Tip number 1, that's all you have to do. State the objective. Now let's move on to tip number 2. Tip number 2 is interesting. It's interesting because it's all up to you to keep your message packaged nicely. And what I mean by that is keep your message together. This is probably the most challenging part of your presentation. And when I say keep your message together, what you don't want to do is you don't want to be all over the place. See, Because in the previous main point, in your opening, you said the objective is for you to get this information and use it this way so that you can become a better person or whatever your objective was. Make sure that was clear in the first main point or the first tip. The second tip now is to make sure you put your presentation together in a way that the audience can absolutely follow you. And that's what the second tip is going to talk about. Keeping it together. Don't you just hate it? Here's a great example. Don't you just hate it when you start listening to someone speaking and then all of a sudden they start taking a turn and they go somewhere else and they kind of lose you and they say, well, but I digress. And I guess that's the excuse for them to say, well, I just went somewhere I shouldn't, but it's okay because I digress. No. If you're doing a presentation, you should stay focused on what you're talking about. A great example of not being focused, I'll give you two, is when you're doing a presentation or hearing a presentation during certain times of the year. An example, February. There's a big football game that happens in February. And we'll talk about that here very shortly. But then you have like a holiday like the 4th of July. There's a lot going on the 4th of July. Or Christmas. There's a lot going on Christmas that can get you off track. Or if there's some type of big event like the election we had last year in 2020, then that can get you off track. Leading up to the election with the different debates that were happening, that could get you off track. So you want to make sure you keep your message together and you talk about the things that you told your audience you're going to talk about. Let's go back to that football game real quickly. Don't you just hate it that when you're sitting in the audience and you're talking and all of a sudden the speaker who's speaking to you happened to be a fan of one of the football teams in that big game, and that person, that speaker, starts to talk about how that team of that he or she is rooting for did during the Super Bowl. Has nothing to do with the presentation. And it really is aggravating the audience, especially those who are not football fans or those whose teams are not playing in that big game. So it's important to stay focused. How do you stay focused is a great question. How do you stay focused when there's so many different things that are going on that can get you off track? Well, there's something I came up with. It's an acronym called RVET. It's almost like a Corvette. You know, when you're taking that trip, when you have your spouse and you're ready to go on this trip, I should say significant other too. You may not have a spouse. But are you having a trip planned and you're ready to go? You jump in the car? Well, in this case, doing speaking presentations, I'm not going to call it a Corvette. I'm going to call it an RVET. Think of the RVET principle. And the RVET principle stands for just what you see on the screen. The first letter of RVET is the R, which means the information that you're presenting should be relevant to the main point you're talking about. Whatever you're talking about, it should be relevant. If we're talking about tips on speaking, and it just happens to be the time of the Masters golf tournament down in Augusta, Georgia, and the speaker is a golf fanatic, all of a sudden the speaker starts to talk about round 3, I guess, on the 16th hole. And did you see the shot that so-and-so? Now, you may have many people in the audience who don't follow golf, are not golf fans. How is that going to be relevant to what they are sitting there trying to listen to? The information needs to be relevant. So therefore, you have to continue to repeat the main points and how it relates to the objective. So if the Masters or that football game or the National Basketball Association or the Hockey League, if none of those championship opportunities or games are relevant to what the speaker is speaking about, then the speaker should not include that information. So in this case here, make sure the information is relevant to what we are talking about. We were talking about the 3 tips that you can use to become a better speaker and speak before an audience of 5, 50, or 500. First tip is to make sure that you state the objective in your opening. When you state your objective in the opening, make sure that you also provide a roadmap for the audience to know exactly where you're going. It prepares your audience to listen for certain things in your presentation. This will help as a speaker of 5, 50, or 500. Package your deal real nicely. Keep your message together. Make sure you take the trip in an Arvette. Make sure the information is relevant. But not only that, make sure that you have verifiable facts. Okay, what are verifiable facts? Verifiable facts is information that can be verified. What am I talking about in these 3 tips? Well, I happen to be a John Maxwell coach, speaker, and trainer. I'm a certified John Maxwell coach, speaker, and trainer. Now, there may be some people who don't and never heard of John Maxwell. Well, John Maxwell is considered the #1 leadership author in the world. He has an organization that teaches people how to be coaches, teaches people how to be speakers, teaches people how to be trainers. It's the John Maxwell organization. And I am a certified John Maxwell. I'm a certified John Maxwell. I won't say what program I am, but I've been in that program for a while, and I've been trained by the John Maxwell team. I've been trained by John Maxwell's faculty that is responsible for speaking. His name is Roddy Galbraith, and Roddy is the expert for John Maxwell when it comes to speaking. So much of what I'm talking about here is based on the teachings that I got through the John Maxwell group, and the faculty member is Roddy Galbraith. So that's verifiable. You can go and check John Maxwell out. You can find out about their speaking faculty, and you can find out the name of Roddy Galbraith, and you'll learn more about him if you'd like to. But that information is verifiable. It's got to be relevant. The information should be relevant to the presentation. The facts that you use should be verifiable. So if you have somebody like at your workplace come up to you and said, well, we have to start working 2 hours later at a different plant, and it just happens to be a coworker. Okay, so your coworker said that. Now, is that information verifiable? Is he a source that people can listen to and then everybody picks up and moves to where he says you should go? Is he like in an authoritative position, or a leadership position, I should say? Is he the person who makes the rules or where the work location is? If he is, then that's one thing. But if he isn't, then that information he provided you needs to be verified. So as a speaker, when you're speaking about something, whatever it is, you can say, Father Johnson said that we are supposed to do this, or Pastor Jones, or whatever. You need to make sure it's verifiable. Or you can say the principal of whatever school, or Congressman so-and-so said this, or coming out of the Wall Street Journal, or article written by whomever. See, that's verifiable facts. That's what you want to do. It doesn't have to be complex as long as the information that you're providing can be verified by real facts, or by authorized conversations, I guess, because a lot of things that are written nowadays may not be total facts, but it was written. So if you can quote a source, that's what I'm talking about being a verifiable fact. And then the other part of the Arvette is the examples. Just like I was saying, well, let me give you an example. It is important that when you're doing your presentation and you're talking about the different main points, which you gave in the roadmap and your objective and the opening, when you give examples, it helps to reinforce the points that you're making in your presentation. You can give an example of what you saw on TV that was made available for the mass, what you read, as long as you give credit to the author. You can be your own example. Let's say, talk about when you had the opportunity standing before an audience and your experience. That's a great example. That's a testimonial that you can give. Or how did you help someone? Or what did you see that caused you to say, yes, that was great. That was a great presentation. Give an example. So RVET, make sure the information is relevant. Make sure the information can be verified. Give your examples, even if it's testimonials. Give examples. That all together supports the main point that you're talking about. So you got the R, the V, the E. What about the T? Well, the T is the transition. The T is the part now where you go back and you keep that package nicely packaged and you say, now let's just move on to our next point. Now let's move on to our next point. So that's what we were talking about then. So now let's press on and let's go to the next point. But it's important, again, up front, that you let your audience know what points you're going to be talking about. That is why in the first tip you want to make sure that you state the objective in your opening, what you want your audience to get from the information you're about to provide, and how they should use the information. And you should also tell them about the roadmap of the points that you're going to make throughout the presentation so that they can mentally follow you on that journey that you're taking. And you get to use transitions to go from one main point to another. So that's where the RVET, remember that trip I was telling you about where the spouse came home or the significant other came home and grabbed the other person and they went on the trip? It's very important to know where you're going. And while you're on this trip, having milestones or mile markers to know if we're on track to get to where we need to be. Those mile markers are that roadmap that you would mention in tip number one. Tip number one is your objective as well as the roadmap of your main points that you're going to talk about. Tip number two, keep your presentation together. Keep it together by using the acronym RVET. RVET. Relevant, verifiable, examples, transition. Make sure the information you're providing is relevant. Make sure the information that you're providing is verifiable. Make sure the information that you're providing is maybe examples or testimonials. And make sure that you have transitions to go from one main point to another. So that's 2 of the 3 tips. Make sure that you have your objective in your opening. Make sure you tell your audience in the opening what you want them to do with the information, how you want them to use the information that you're providing, and let them know the information you're going to provide in just the main points. You don't have to go and be extravagant. Just use 2, 3, 4 words and say, I'm going to talk about this first. And I'm going to talk about this second. I'm going to talk about this third. That's all in tip number 1. Tip number 2 is once you laid it out, keep it together. Make sure you don't go this way and that way and don't say, I digress, which means that you didn't keep it together. You were going all over the place. It's important for you to give the information to the audience who has taken the time to sit with you to listen to what you have to say. So you owe it to them to make sure that you give the information that you said you were going to give. Now, this is this is shocking. I found this on the internet, and it's written by Kelly Allison for Ethos 3. And please take a look at that. Find that out on Google. And it's amazing that the audience retention is about, what? It says by 20%. Increases by 20% when you add facts and figures. Because many people are kind of doubting that you know what you're talking about, just like you might be doing right here with me. Doubting that, what is he talking about? Well, if I give you some facts and figures, if I give you some verifiable information, then you get what you're looking for. You get some facts, and you still have an opportunity to make up your own mind one way or another, whether it's credible or not credible. But I've given it to you. I've used the RVET. Remember the RVET. Make sure the information is relevant, verifiable. That's what this slide is all about. saying that, listen, if we give you facts and we give you statistics, then more people will retain the information. But you don't want to overwhelm people with statistics or surveys, and that's why we ran through the survey earlier. We didn't want to do that because I didn't want you to stay focused on what the result of the survey was all about. I wanted you to be focused on the 3 tips. Tip number 1, exactly, your objective in the opening, without question. Give the objective in the opening. Tell your audience what you want them to get out of the information. Tell them how you want them to use the information, and also let them know a roadmap of where you're going. What are the main points of your presentation when you are giving the presentation? Tip number 2, when you're taking the trip, when you're giving the message, keep the message together. Let me say that again. Tip 2, keep the message together. Make sure that you use an acronym that I use. It's called RVET. Make sure the information is relevant. Make sure that it's verifiable. Make sure that you use examples. And make sure that you transition between main points to keep a smooth ride, to keep a smooth ride, because your audience is going on the trip with you. You're actually driving your audience, and you want to make sure that it's a smooth ride and they get something out of your presentation. That which they're getting out of their presentation is the objective. So it's important to state the objective in your opening. It's important to keep your presentation together. And you can do that by stating the objective while you're talking about the main point and trying to keep relating it back to your examples related back to the main point and your main point back to the objective. Those are the 2 tips. The 2 tips. Here's the 3rd tip, and I've been doing it all along. Guess what? Restate your main point throughout your presentation. Now, if you've got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 more main points, it's going to be very, very, very difficult to restate your main point. When people say, I've got 21 points I want to talk to you, or I got 10 points I want to talk to you about. It's going to be kind of hard to remember the 10 points. The way you group multiple main points together, you can group it up. And that's another, trust me, that is another webinar that I can talk to you about. But in this example, we want to try to keep your main points no more than 5. 7 is a lot because you're really trying to keep it as simple as you can so your audience can truly follow you. See, I have 3 main points. The 3 main points are the 3 tips that I have. State your objective early, and with that, make sure you have the information provided to your audience, what you want them to do with the information and how to use it. And also you want to make sure that they have a roadmap for where you're going with the presentation. Tip number 2, keep your message together. Use RVET. Make sure the message or the information in your message is relevant. Make sure that the information in your message is verifiable. Make sure you use examples that are relevant to the main point you're talking about, and then transition between main points. An example. So we just talked about that. Let's get ready to move on to our next point. That's a transition. If you just use these 3 tips, the 3 tips. Number 1, stating your objective in the opening. Number 2, keeping your message together. And tip number 3, restate your main point. Make it simple. Make it repetitive. Say it again and again and again. You're still going to get some people in your audience who miss something. But that's not because of you, because you've restated your main points over and over again. Now, what's critical about restating your main points? You have to tie your main points into or back to your objective. So you've got the objective, and on the objective, you've got main points. So everything that you talk about within the main points relate to the main point. And the main point should relate back to the objective. That's how you keep it together. That's how you do the RVET. That's what it's all about. Simple. 3, I always do things like that. 3 tips on being a speaker or better presenter before an audience. State your objective in the opening. Keep your message together and restate your main points. That's what you do. Those are the tips to help you become a better presenter. You restate your objective briefly, you restate each main point, and you restate the roadmap. You just keep doing it. Those 3 tips will help you become a better speaker. So here's where we've been in this last 30 minutes. We've talked, and I said I wanted to do the survey. I didn't want to do the survey, and I'm not going to do it this time. The next webinar series, we'll do the survey. It's a good survey. The only problem with the survey is that sometimes when we're doing the survey, it gets us so far off track that we lose time. And I wanted to talk about the tips. Why did I want to talk about the tips? Because my objective said I'm going to provide you 3 tips that you can use to become a better speaker. And you can use to build a foundation for you to improve as a speaker, so that you can make a presentation or you can speak before an audience of 5, 50, or 500. Just remember these 3 tips. There it is. State the objective in the opening, keep your message together, and restate the main points. That's all you need. So my question to you now is how we been, how is it? I mean, how was that? I mean, was it helpful? Did you learn anything? Can you take away from here the objective that I wanted you to take away from here, the 3 tips that you can use? I try to make it as simplistic as I possibly can so that it's not a complex process. Just remember those 3 tips again. The objective in the opening, keeping your message together, and restating your main points. You do that. You establish that as a foundation, and then you keep building on that. And the more you do, you'll become a better speaker time and time and time again. So that's what we do here, is we provide some information to you. And I didn't make this promise earlier, and I'll tell you now, I am not going to sell you anything now. I told you I was going to be here with you for 45 minutes. I'm not going to sell you anything, but I would ask that if you don't mind sticking around just to hear for the last 15 minutes some of the other things that we do at CBV Services that can help you expand your skills and opportunities. In that survey, one of the questions that it asked, if you become a good speaker, or great speakers, or speakers, people who can speak well, have better opportunities for promotion. And I think that always seems to come up on top as one of the highest marks. And that is the case. People who are speakers. I'm not talking about professional keynote speakers. I'm not talking about people who actually get hired to do presentation. I'm not talking about actors. I'm not talking about people in the church, ministers, pastors. I'm not talking about those types of speakers. I'm talking about just everyday people who have to speak in front of an audience, be it 5, 50, or 500. The audience might be, a classroom of kids. It might be coworkers in the break room. It might be, you're reading church notes. You might be at a meeting and somebody call on you to give out the notes. Just try to keep it simple. Just try to keep it simple. Or you might be speaking before an audience of 500 or whatever. But if you keep these foundations in mind by stating the objective up front in your opening and letting people know where you're going to go with the information, the roadmap, and then you keep the message together by using that RVET, relevant information, verifiable information, using examples and transitioning, that gets you through the presentation. And just keep restating the main points and the objective. Just keep restating it throughout your entire presentation, as I did. And people will walk away with the information you want them to walk away with. You actually stated that in the objective, remember? I'm going to provide you some information that you can use to help you become a better speaker before an audience of 5, 50, or 500. That was my objective. Some of the things we do here at Capers Business Ventures, we also provide other services, which I want to really quickly go over and share with you. We do coaching. I am a certified John Taxable coach. So I do one-on-one coaching as well as coaching within a group. So I offer both coaching sessions. I've had some people I've coached and they've done very well. I'm proud of them. They could have done it without me, but they just needed someone to help them cross the T's and dot the I's and stay focused on what needed to be focused on so that they can get to that next level. That's why I call myself a level up coach. Everything I do is about getting to the next level, leveling yourself up. So I do one-on-one coaching and I do group coaching, one of the services we provide. I'm also a keynote speaker. I also do seminars similar to this where I share some tips with you on how to be a better speaker before an audience. But I am also available to do keynotes. And you can find all that information out about me on my website, which I'm about to share with you. So coaching, speaking, and training, leadership training. I do leadership training too. And a part of training that I've been focusing on lately has been training in diversity, equity, and inclusion. I've been doing a lot of that. I'm a facilitator of that curriculum. So I'm a certified facilitator for diversity, equity, and inclusion. So if you ever need any type of information or any services in that regard, please call on me. I also do leadership training, and that's primarily what I do, the leadership training for companies, organizations, and help the companies, organizations get to the next level through the leadership training that I have. Again, all certified through the John Maxwell the John Maxwell Group. I'm a certified John Maxwell coach, speaker, trainer. I'm stumbling over my words because I want to make sure I meet that 45-minute obligation that I told you that I would. Also, what we offer at Capers Business Ventures, we offer online courses. I've created some online courses and some are in draft right now, being ready to be offered to the public. And I want you to be aware that we have at least 2 online courses that are going to be available very soon, probably within the next 60 days. So keep your eye out on that. So how do you find my online courses, or how do you find out more about me at the Capers Business Ventures? Well, you want to visit us at our website. That is CBV Services. Let me say it again. Charlie Bravo Sam Services. CBVServices.com/home. That's where you want to go and find out about Mel Capers. Melvin Capers was right there. John Maxwell certified coach, speaker, and trainer. And I design online courses as well. That's what we offer at CBV Services. Just like the 3 tips we talked about earlier, I can actually develop a training plan specific to your needs. Be it speaking, be it leadership, be it diversity and inclusion. Check me out. CBVServices.com/home. That's how you find me. Guess what? I also have a community. Now, it's not a Facebook community. It's not to say anything bad about Facebook. It's just a personalized community for CBV Services and my clients. If you'd like some specialized training at your pace, at a pace that you're comfortable with, join me in this community. Once you get into the community, there'll be like clients like yourself there that you can have crosstalk with, and there are so many other opportunities in my community. Again, cbvservices.com/community. Go to my website, you'll find it out. It's right there. Learn about my community to help you expand your skills and the opportunities for you. It's all about you leveling up to the next level. So, please, you know what? Let me say something real quickly about this community. This community that I have authors there. I have entrepreneurs there. We have different opportunities for you to expand your horizon and continue to level up. That's what this community is used for. And also, the courses that I mentioned, the online courses, I have people who are members of my beta team. So they get the first opportunity to actually go through the courses when it's in beta, before I release it to the public. So if you really want to be a part of leveling up, this is a fantastic opportunity for you to join our community and level up in any area that you want to be leveled up in. Here is the big thing that I have. Again, I'm not asking you to buy anything. I'm just letting you know the services we offer. One of the items that I do, or one of the elements I do in CBV services is I have the Capers Business Ventures Connect podcast. I have a podcast, and I've had it on now for about a year, a little bit more than a year. And I have some unbelievable guests on my podcast. Recently, I had a guest, Her Excellence, Her Excellence, Dr. Diana Connolly. I should know that. But she was on my podcast as a guest just recently. I had she's a UN ambassador. Yes, that's why we call her Her Excellence. UN Ambassador Dr. Diana Connolly was a guest on my podcast. I also had another guest on my podcast who happened to be a member of Floyd Mayweather's camp. Floyd Mayweather is a professional boxer, and she was a part of his camp for 12 years, a part of the Floyd Mayweather camp. She was a guest on my podcast. Some of the stories that she told me were mind-boggling. I mean, it was all exciting, but it's just mind-boggling that somebody that young could have had that type of experience. She's doing great things now with her husband, who happened to be a professional dancer. A professional dancer to big, artists like Monica, and I can't remember all of the artists, but he used to dance quite frequently in the 90s. And they were married at the time. So she was in the Floyd Mayweather camp, and he was dancing professionally on the road with some of these professional musicians. And so those were the type of guests that I've had on my podcast. Love them on my podcast. As well as Dr. Diana Connolly, I had both Kevin and Tasha White. Tasha and Kevin White, that's who they are. And they own Vanguardian Global. It's a promotion. They are promoters, I should say. So you need to check them out at vanguardianglobal.com. Awesome. Awesome group of people. And lastly, on my podcast, I've had this lady who is a publisher. She owns a publishing company, and we have a partnership. Her name is Sonia Pinckney Rhodes. She is founder and chief executive of J.M. Pinckney Publishing. You need to check them out, jmpinckneypublishing.com. She's doing incredible things, and she's got the authors who are signing up with her coming on my podcast. They are joining my community. So CBV Services, we have quite a bit going on. We offer, I was about to say we offer monthly seminars, but it may not be monthly. It's going to be at least once a quarter. You'll have another seminar on a different subject. That's what we offer at CBV Services. It's about leveling up, going to the next level, just like we did in this seminar series, in this webinar series. Want you to level up and preparing yourself to become a better speaker. And you can do that by using the 3 tips that we talked about. The 3 tips: making sure that you said the objective up front in your opening and using the roadmap to let your audience know where you're going to go, keeping your message together, and restating your main points. That's what this webinar was all about. I wanted to also share with you some of the services that we offer at CBV Services. These are my contact information. If you want to send me a note or a letter, you can send me a letter at that address. You can call me, 1-877-228-0011. That's my business line. You can also send me an email, melvin.capers@cbvservices.com. Or, hey, visit my website. I want you to visit my website, cbvservices.com/home. It's not there, but that's how you get in my community, and that's how you get to visit me at or at CBV Services. You can also send melvin.capers@cbvservices.com. You can get me. It comes directly to me. It won't go to my staff. It comes directly to me. You can call me. And you can please visit my website. It's what I really want you to do. And also get in touch with my community. So that is how you get in touch with me. Here's where we've been. I wanted to talk to you about the 3 tips, which we did. Stating your objective in your opening, keeping your message together, and just restating the main points. That's how you prepare yourself. That's how you prepare yourself to become a better speaker. Listen, it's been a pleasure. It's truly been a pleasure to have spoken to you today, or be with you today, I should say, and just spend 45 minutes with you to talk to you about the 3 tips that can help you become a better speaker. We want you to be a better speaker. We want you to level up. We want you to get in touch with me so that we can do it together as partners. cbbservices.com/home. Can't wait to see you. And for that, I'll just leave you with this. We will see you the next time.